Finding Common Battlegrounds is an attempt by two brothers, one conservative, the other progressive, to have civil conversations about politics with a little help from their friends.
All right, okay, we're live, all in one room. We got Ryan Cragun, Josh Cragun, and I'm new, but my name is Jake Cragun. I also, as you can tell, have the same last name. I am the nephew of these two. I am here as a special guest because we're doing this in-person one. Also, I will note that the pilot episode was moderated by yours truly. Today we have a cool topic. We're going to be talking about should we have more restrictions on guns. But before we get started on this one, for the sake of getting to know these two a little bit more, I wanted to ask both of you, in your joint relationship growing up together, what was your experience with guns?
Did I ever shoot you, Josh?
No, you didn't shoot. You actually taught me to shoot.
I taught you to shoot.
Yeah.
That's actually
awesome. Dad bought that old Ruger 22.
Yeah.
And
that was my Christmas present. I was going to
That was yours?
That. At 12, I got the 22. Yeah,
Oh,
for
I didn't know
Christmas.
that was yours. But you,
I took you shooting.
in the backyard, like out shooting over the sheep in that field. Yeah. You're the one that taught me to shoot.
Yeah, so I got a 22 for Christmas when I was 12. We had BB guns before that, and we always had BB guns around.
We had BB guns.
Did you ever have BB gun wars?
No.
I did. One of my good friends, I don't know if he's ever going to listen to this, Tyler McConville, who lived right over here from where we are right now.
Yeah.
I shot him one night. We were getting ready to go to a basketball game up in Morgan, which is where we are.
How old were you?
We were old enough to drive, so we were still stupid, right? Stupid enough to be doing a BB gun war with no goggles or glasses. And I shot him, I don't know if the camera can see it, right there.
Oh, jeez.
And somehow that BB stuck and his face began to swell around it. And I remember having to stick my finger in there and pop the BB out before his entire eye swelled shut.
That's gross.
So I did stupid stuff with guns. I get it.
All our older brothers did. Mike still has a couple BBs in him. We were talking about that a couple weeks ago. That Troy put in him.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
So after all, we are all from Utah, raised up in here, and Utah's big on guns, so I'm not surprised that was your background. So let's just get into it. We don't have long today. So our main question, again, I'll emphasize it one more time, but our main point here that we're going to be talking about is should we have more restrictions on guns? So by the end of this, we want to have agreement. Again, for those who are new to listening to the podcast, the whole goal here is to have Ryan Cragun, our more liberal-leaning participant, and Josh Cragun, our more conservative-leaning participant, find agreement on generally controversial ideas and topics. So we're gonna start off with Ryan, and we're gonna let Ryan talk about his first point. And Ryan's first point is: can we agree that not everyone in the U.S. should own a gun? You want to talk about that a little bit for us?
Yeah, and this one's pretty short. I think we're going to hit some agreement right out of the gate here. I don't think everyone in the U.S. should have a gun. And I'll just give two examples. Anyone who previously used a gun to commit a crime should be permanently prohibited from having a gun, in my opinion. Red flag laws should be universal across the U.S. and strictly enforced. And we can talk about what those are if people aren't familiar, but people who are basically threatening to go shoot up a school, they should have their guns pulled, right? I think the nuance here is going to be in who we think should be allowed to have a gun and who should not. Even so, Josh, can we agree that not everyone in the U.S. should own or be allowed to own a gun?
Everybody should have like 6 guns. No, I actually agree with that. And the studies bear that out. That it is important to keep guns out of hands of people that have proven to be irresponsible with guns. So I agree with that one 100%. No problem. Not everybody should have a gun.
Yeah. And I genuinely, when I say I think the nuances in like where we might disagree, but I don't even know that I need to go into that because we could probably get into the weeds very quickly.
Yeah, we could.
About like, no, I think these people should, those people shouldn't. I really don't know all the people who should or shouldn't own a gun. I just think there should be certain groups that are restricted from owning guns. People who have committed crimes with guns, absolutely. Red flag laws, some mental health issues. I'm wary going down there because that gets really complicated.
That's mostly what the red flag laws should be pointed at, is people with mental health issues.
Who are threatening, who are making the threats, right? As long as we're doing that, I think we're fine. So yeah, I think we've got agreement right out of the gate.
Yeah, sounds like agreement. The only thing I'm surprised on was not more pushback on red flag laws.
Well, I mean, if we want to go into what they should be, but
we won't go into it too far, but just real briefly, just so we can make sure we have 100% agreement on this one. Because unlike past podcasts, agreement really matters here. Because in the end,
we're not going to agree.
In the end, whoever gets the most agreement gets something out of the end of this podcast.
Oh,
yeah.
I like
He's
this.
raising the stakes for
Jake's brought something new to the table.
All right.
So let's make sure. So are we 100% agreement on that? His main point is, can we agree that not everyone in the U.S. should own a gun?
Yeah, we are, in the main point. And he's right. We could get into the weeds on the red flag laws on where you should have the restrictions. But there are people that shouldn't have guns.
Okay.
They've proven themselves to be irresponsible.
All right, we'll move on.
I think there are people in the country that shouldn't be allowed to have penises. Okay? Same principle. If you violently rape somebody, you shouldn't have a penis.
No more penis.
You've proven yourself irresponsible. So, same principle in my mind.
Take away guns, take away penises. I like it. So, all right, so we're going to go to Josh's first point. Ryan, would you agree that in the United States, more Democrats per capita is a far greater indication of gun crime than guns per capita?
No, I say this half tongue in cheek, but it's actually true.
I know, but man, this is like a racist argument.
No, it's not.
Okay,
there's nothing racial about it.
Explain it, because I'm wary all the way here.
There's nothing racial about this.
Let's go. Okay,
the top 19 state or cities where violent gun crime happens. Who runs it?
Probably Democratic mayors, because they're big cities in eastern states.
Okay, and there's
with
a
the
little bit
exception
of
Chicago and maybe Detroit and a few
There's a couple other ones. And I say 19 because the 20th one is a Republican city. So the top 19, I mean, they're still statistically significant. Okay?
Sure.
Most of the gun crime is happening in Democrat-run counties or cities.
Cities. Well,
Okay?
we'll go with cities.
Well, I mean, there's the counties too. Most of the gun crime, I think it's 3/4 of the gun crime happened in 6% of the counties in the country.
Sure.
So you have some very problematic areas.
Yes.
And most of the country, you have almost no gun crime. I mean, there's a little bit, but in counties like Morgan, there's virtually no gun crime here. Okay, and there's a lot of guns here. So what the point I'm trying to make is, the Democratic talking point is a proliferation of guns is problematic, and all these guns is what causes gun crime. There's absolutely no correlation between those two things: proliferation of guns and gun crime. Okay, we have record number of guns right now, and gun crime continues to go down. Right, in most places, overall in the country, the gun crime continues to go down.
Well, crime is going down. So
yeah,
yes.
Not really, because violent gun crime in civilized societies is always on a downward trend.
Not always. No.
It'll occasionally
in the 70s and 80s. I mean, it's gone up and down over the years.
Okay, sorry. Within the last 60 years, 70 years,
it's gone up.
Civilized societies, it'll occasionally spike.
Yes,
but generally the trend is violent gun crime. Crime in general goes down.
Crime in general, though, again,
but violent gun crime as well.
Peaks and troughs, and
not that generally it's going down.
Crime, violence, I think, is the real one. That's what's
all
his
of
name?
them though. Violence is going down.
Pinker, Steven Pinker wrote the book, "The Better Nature of Our Better Angels of Our Nature," showing that. That's a very controversial suggestion. So a lot of historians actually disagree with some of his findings. But I think the general sentiment is accurate. I think the general sentiment is that violence has been going down. Specifics about violent crime. So your ultimate point, am I off the screen or am I
I was just checking that. You're slightly off, so maybe come in a little bit more. We'll make sure you're here.
We've never done a live one before.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Test run.
Yeah. So your general point is, I mean, it's just a fact, right? So you're just making a fact that I can't disagree with the fact.
There's no correlation between prevalence of guns and gun crime. And if you want another proof of that, you look at
But
well, obviously there has to be one gun
be
to have.
Yeah.
No, look at Switzerland. Switzerland is number
but
2.
then I can always throw out Australia. I mean, we can go with.
You can, but your numbers are wrong. I've looked into them since the last time we talked about it. They're totally wrong.
Okay, so let's maybe not go there. But if we're just looking inside the U.S., you're saying that there's no correlation between how many guns exist in that city or county and how many crimes are happening?
If there's a correlation, it goes in the opposite direction. More guns equals less crime, if there's a correlation, according to the numbers. So it's murky. The numbers are not super clear, but the correlation that the Democrats want to draw is that more guns equals more gun crime, and that is not true. It's false. It's a false correlation, and again, I say it tongue-in-cheek about the Democrats, but that is true. Democrats shoot more people than Republicans. That's true.
Such a racist.
There's nothing racial about it.
It's totally a racial argument.
There's
because
nothing
you're
racial
talking
about it.
inner city crime that's happening in some predominantly black and Hispanic neighborhoods where you have gang issues and you have violence.
Exactly.
Right?
Okay.
And
so
that
poverty,
becomes a race issue and a poverty issue.
Poverty is a bigger issue.
Yes.
I don't know if race is such a big issue. Poverty plays into it. That's why it's a tongue-in-cheek thing. But right. Can you agree? I can agree on the fact that 19 of the 20 cities are Democratically led, but they have the highest violence. Let's go to the Switzerland argument then. Behind the United States, they have more guns per capita than anywhere else in the world.
Behind the U.S., because we beat everybody.
We beat everybody by a lot. They're number 2. They have a lot of guns. Basically, everybody in the country has a gun in Switzerland, and they have no gun crime.
They're very little.
Very, very little gun crime. Right. Okay, so what that proves, and again, master of nuance, there are reasons for it,
right?
But it proves that there's no correlation between guns and the presence of guns or the proliferation of guns and gun crime. There's not a direct correlation. Obviously, you need one gun present to have a gun crime.
Yes,
but more guns does not equal more gun crime. Do we agree with that?
Maybe in the U.S. I'm reticent to say that that's true around the world.
Well, let's restrict our argument to the U.S. Because our politics are only going to be in the U.S. We're not going to make legislation for
maybe Australia. In the U.S. that is true. I would really like to run those numbers myself, but I'll invite you to
do so because it's quite interesting. Because I agree, it actually doesn't make a lot of sense on its head. You would think more guns equals more gun crime. It doesn't. The correlation is probably the opposite. Mm-hmm. In Morgan County, there's a ton of guns here.
Oh, yeah, there are.
There's not very much gun crime. Like, it's almost non-existent.
All right, but let's end that one because we have a shorter podcast today. Right. So we're going to move on to the next talking point. So we're going to go to Ryan's second point, Josh. So can you two agree that too many people die from guns every year in the U.S.?
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So I think we're going to get agreement, but I've got a lot on this that I just need to go through, and I'll go through it quick. I think we have a gun problem in the U.S. We have 120 guns for every 100 Americans.
Hoorah!
Yeah! Sounds a little low, to be honest.
Love that!
Oh my gosh. Meaning the average American has 1.2 guns. Of course, that's not the actual distribution. In reality, just 1 in 5 of Americans, or 22%, own guns. So with 320 million Americans, give or take, and 390 million guns, that means the average gun owner has 6 guns. And of course, as Josh is aware, even that number is misleading, as most gun owners probably have 1, and a tiny subset, like Josh, have dozens.
I wish I had dozens. I have several.
There are other brothers who have, if not dozens,
Danny has
dozens
yes.
of guns, right? So they're kind of, we would call that a skewed distribution.
Yeah.
Right? The distribution is very skewed.
I know several people that have dozens, scores of guns.
Yes. Okay, so regardless, it is a minority of Americans who own guns, yet they have been able to structure laws to allow the absurdity, in my opinion, of gun pervasiveness such that people in my state, Florida, I'm in Utah today, that's where we are, can carry weapons with them virtually all the time and shoot someone if they feel threatened. That is called the stand your ground laws, and I think they were trying to do that here in Utah.
Yeah, that's going on right now. They're pushing for no required concealed carry permit.
I think it's smart.
We can maybe get to that later if we have time. It's the freaking Wild West in Florida when it comes to guns. In 2019, there were 14,400 gun-related homicides. I'm being very careful in my
In
language.
Florida or
No, in the U.S. The fact that you thought that was okay
Yeah.
in Florida.
That's why I was seeking clarification. That seemed a
There's
tad.
14,000 Florida just in
Hey, it's Florida. Florida's
It is
crazy.
Florida.
Florida's crazy.
Fair. Killings involving a gun accounted for nearly 3/4 of all homicides in the U.S. in 2019. In 2020, there were over 600 mass shootings, and as of the end of May in the U.S., there have been at least 230 mass shootings. It's more than one a day. There are also about 400 accidental gun deaths every year, including a lot of kids who die because they get their parents' guns.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you're not in favor of doing any of that stuff, but we'll talk about it. Quick tangent that won't be popular necessarily. About 60% of the roughly 47,000 suicides in 2017 involved firearms. While suicides are always tragic, I actually don't think it should be as stigmatized as it is to kill yourself. It's your life. You should get to choose whether you get to live or die, right? So I'm not going to... A lot of times when you see these arguments about gun control, they use the argument about suicide to say we need to restrict guns because of suicides. I'm not actually going to use that.
They use that to skew the numbers.
They do,
all the
and
time.
I don't want to do that.
Good.
I get that that's controversial.
Yeah.
High five that you're taking
You
that
can do it in
stance.
person.
Because
yeah,
that's an intellectually honest
I think
point.
so.
Thank you.
Because
I like that.
you could kill yourself lots of other ways.
And,
Guns,
people do.
And people do.
Mhm.
Guns are very effective at it, and that's why men are more likely to kill themselves than women. It's complicated, but I'm not going to include that in my arguments,
Good.
even though I think we could. So my ultimate point is, Josh, can we agree that too many people die from guns every year in the U.S.?
Yeah, because one
One
gun
is too
death
many.
is too many. So we'll agree. It's quite complicated. But yeah, there is a gun problem in the United States, undoubtedly. So I agree with you on that. That's
Okay.
an easy one.
Cool. Well, we'll move on. Josh, your second point is, would you agree that God made all men and Sam Colt made all men equal?
Another tongue-in-cheek one here. I was hoping we would have fun today. You've heard the saying.
I have not heard that saying.
Oh,
That's
really?
the first time
You
I've
haven't?
ever heard that. No.
That was I don't know where it originated,
That's funny.
but it was like an old Wild West saying that I've heard it a bunch of times, that God made all men, Sam Colt made all men equal. Okay? Here's what I want to get with that. You don't need a ton of training with a firearm. We went paintballing yesterday. Ryan took us paintballing. It was a lot of fun. I took my kid, my 9-year-old son, and my 11-year-old daughter. In a confrontation with an adult male, does my daughter have a chance?
No.
Not a chance.
Probably
But yesterday with the paintball gun, she was killing guys.
Yeah.
I've never been prouder of my life. Just getting out there shooting people. Okay. So the statistics on this, it's between. So this comes from a study authorized by Obama. There's at least 2 million violent crimes prevented by gun use every year, and then this study that Obama authorized, which he didn't talk about because I don't think he liked the results, it was probably closer to 3 million in the United States. So 3 million violent crimes are prevented by people with guns every year. Okay? And the point there is, if somebody breaks into my house and I'm not here, does my wife have a chance against an adult male with my kids?
Depends on if she has access to the gun, I guess. So I'm making your own point for you.
That's
which
the
is
only
terrible.
chance. The only chance she has is if she can get to the gun safe. Okay?
Okay.
I'm
so reticent to agree to this because oftentimes when people break in, if you have no training with a gun,
Agreed.
the person who's breaking in can take your gun and shoot you.
I know.
That's why I'm like, I don't know that I like this argument.
But does she have any chance? Does my daughter have any chance without the gun against an adult male?
It depends on what martial arts training they have and how high the person is. Like, there are a lot. I'm the master
There are
of
variables,
nuance, right?
but
there
just
are variables.
in general.
In general, if it's
No.
average size male with their level of physical aggression and size, and average size female with their level of physical aggression and size, then probably not.
Okay.
Probably not.
Okay, good enough. Guns do protect people, and the media, the liberal media, again, are pushing this narrative that they only kill people. Guns do protect people. Okay, 3 million violent crimes a year prevented by people with guns. And if we decide to do away with guns and make it way more harder for people to have guns, then we're going back to a pre-gun society where only the biggest, most violent males have a monopoly on violence. Okay, women aren't going to be able to protect themselves.
Yeah, but the odds of one of those people killing a woman. So let's say we're just making this a gendered argument right now, right? So it's men attacking women,
Okay.
which is more common than women attacking men. But fine. The odds of them killing them just through physical violence without a gun or other weapon is way lower than them doing it with a gun.
Sure.
Right? Because guns are
But-
highly efficient at killing people. That's what
but
they
effectively,
do.
the argument you're proposing there is it would be better for a woman to get beat up or raped by a man than for us to have guns so she's not killed. Versus her having some chance of defending herself if she's armed. That's kind of the argument you're making, and I don't want to push you there, but that's kind of the argument you're making, and I absolutely disagree with that argument.
But the
I would
argument-
rather the woman
Sure.
has a chance to defend herself, even if something bad happens, even if the attacker
The guy takes her gun
gets
and
the
shoots
gun. Yeah, I would still rather she has the chance to defend herself, because otherwise,
But the only way that argument works is if you arm everybody, you arm them all.
no,
Sure.
just those that no,
You arm
No,
everybody,
no.
and then they actually have enough training that they can defend themselves. Because otherwise the argument doesn't work. We already cited the statistics. Almost 80% of Americans don't own a gun.
Sure.
And they don't want to own a gun.
Yeah, and they shouldn't if they decide not to get
Right?
trained.
Which means
But they're making
then
that
your
choice.
argument starts to fall
No, it
apart
doesn't.
if a bunch of people don't own guns.
No, it doesn't fall apart because people, if somebody lives in a dangerous neighborhood, they might be more inclined to go get some training to be able to defend themselves, right? Whereas somebody that lives in a very safe neighborhood, they're probably less inclined to do so. So you don't have to make the claim that everybody has to get a gun for that argument to work. That's absurd. People can choose to defend themselves or to be prepared. Okay, you don't. It's wise to have a fire extinguisher in the house, right? That's not a law that you have to have a fire extinguisher in case you have a fire.
True.
Exact same
You've got to
thing.
have fire alarms. Yeah, but I mean, really, to just like run that argument out to its logical conclusion. And I'm not disagreeing with like the general sentiment. So there's like maybe at least partial agreement here that people should have the right to defend themselves. Absolutely,
Okay.
I agree. People should have the right to defend themselves. But the only way that it makes sense for people to be able to defend themselves against somebody with a gun is if they also have a gun, which means arm everybody. And sure, in the society where you arm everybody,
Because you're
everybody's afraid, right? Like
Sure.
I'm genuinely afraid in my state and in this state, right? Not that I'm going to get me, Mr. Violent, right? I'm going to go punch somebody, but I'm terrified because anybody could have a gun.
That's absurd though, because the violent gun crime in Utah and Florida are quite low compared to a lot of other states where they have more strict gun control laws. Like Chicago has very strict gun control laws, and you're more likely to get shot in Chicago than you are here.
Yes.
So your fear is grossly misplaced.
Oh, no, but not necessarily, right? Because I have no idea who's carrying, and he's going to keep us on track. Right?
Yeah, so we're about to the end of our time on this talking point. So let's try to wrap this up. Just give him real quick two statements.
What is it you want me to agree with?
Agree with.
If you decide to take guns away from everybody, which is what the Democrats ultimately want to do, they don't like guns.
We'll get to it in my last point. Yeah,
that I don't want to make this a sexist thing because that's the Democrats are saying that the Republicans are all about. We're the ones declaring the war on women.
Awfully long-winded on this one.
And it's what I do. That's why we have. That's literally why we have a moderator.
Well, let's speed this one up a little bit.
Is it sexist to? No, I'm not going to say it that way. Okay. Guns make men and women equal. Guns make small men and large men equal. Guns remove the monopoly of large, angry, violent men to do violence.
I will agree with the general sentiment that guns can be an equalizer.
Okay.
I will agree with the sentiment.
That was what I should have said.
Yes, you should have. I will just flip it on its head and say, like, we don't need it, but that's fine. Like I get it. I get the sentiment.
3 million crimes prevented every year.
I really want to see that study too because I don't.
Obama commissioned.
No. I want to see it. Like genuinely.
We'll pass it on later.
Continue.
So we're going to move on to the third point that Ryan has. So this one, I liked how you phrase this one. Josh, can we agree that there are only two reasons to own a pistol or assault rifle? For fun and to shoot people.
All right, this is my final point, and I'm going for a leap here on my final one. I have shot many guns during my life. I grew up, as we talked about at the beginning, as our regular audiences know, in Utah, in the same family as Josh. We played with BB guns. I got my 22 when I was 12, same age as my son today. I used to stop by the local hardware store. Josh has a box of them here. I know he's going to show it as his prop.
Hold on, we got to tell the story. Like an hour ago, my neighbor came over from across the street and brought me ammo.
Utah.
It was Utah, baby.
This is where we live.
He just brought me ammo because he found some cheap
could
ammo.
theoretically do that. He hunts, but that's a different argument.
I didn't tell him we were doing this. I didn't set this up. He brought me a box of ammo. Thank you, Jeff. You're the man.
It's hilarious. Show
Very
him the
large box
shells.
of mixed place 22 shells.
Yeah.
It's great.
So,
About 500 of them.
So when I was growing up, it wasn't uncommon after school that I would stop on occasion at our local hardware store up in Morgan and pick up some 22 shells and go shooting. And just FYI, most school textbooks can in fact stop a 22 caliber bullet. I have tested that hypothesis. Despite my familiarity with guns, I just can't get behind people owning pistols or assault rifles. Okay, and this is where we get a little edgy. My next door neighbor is a hunter. I love Rich. He's an awesome guy, right? He regularly travels out of state to shoot deer with both a bow, which Josh is in that industry, right, and rifles. Whether you agree with hunting or not, that is, in my opinion, a practical and legal scenario in which guns can and should be used, but no one hunts with a pistol. And if you're hunting with an assault rifle, you're a terrible hunter and a piece of crap. Shame on you. So, Josh, can we agree that there are only two reasons to own a pistol and an assault rifle? For fun and to shoot people.
Absolutely not.
What?
Right,
What
let's
is
hear
the
about
third reason?
To shoot
Why?
politicians.
Who aren't kind
people,
of
I
people.
guess.
Okay, but this is...
Can we agree? Come on, can you agree?
No, because this is very important.
Oh,
The
no.
Second Amendment is not about hunting. It's not about defending your house. It's about killing politicians when they take your rights away. That's what
But
it's
that's
for.
to shoot people. You're
Okay.
You're agreeing with the point, just
But
not
you're,
because you want
you're
to.
dancing around the whole point of the Second Amendment. And we need
I
assault.
think the point of the Second
we
Amendment.
need assault
it was
rifles
written
and pistols to do
hundreds
that.
of years ago.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The founding fathers had just fought a war against the most powerful nation on the planet,
Yeah. The British.
and they didn't want to be subject to another king. That's
Yeah.
the whole point. So why do I want to give up my rights? That's the point of the Second Amendment. When the politicians show up, it's not about defending myself. It's not about
It is about defending yourself. It's
from
about
the government,
Yes.
not from a robber. It's
But
about
that was
defending
your
myself
whole last
from.
point. Your whole last point
Sure.
was defending yourself against a robber, against somebody who's bigger and stronger than you.
Well, not me, my wife or something.
True.
But
This is
You
big
had
guy.
to stand up so they could see that you are bigger and stronger than the other
Yes.
people.
But that's all relevant. It's all important because our gun laws are all or gun ownership. This is all encompassing here. But the whole point is to defend ourselves against a corrupt, tyrannical government.
Like Trump.
No, Sean, we won't go back into that.
Poke.
Okay, so
Poke.
well, sum up what you're trying to say. Yes, the
There are
reason-
only two reasons to own a pistol or an assault
Okay, I
rifle.
agree with that.
Hunting rifles are completely different. Like shotguns, hunting rifles, I get. Like I genuinely get why you might own those if you're going hunting. But a pistol is not designed for hunting.
No.
I think it's fun to shoot. We've shot them before. I mean, a few years ago when I was out here, we had a little pistol shooting competition. I totally get it. It can be fun.
Mhm.
But it's designed for two things. Fun
Okay, I'll
and
agree.
killing people.
If that's all the point you're
That was the
making-
only point.
Okay, I'll agree with
That
that.
they are designed for two things, fun and killing people. This comes back to my kind of summary argument, but that was my whole point is...
Because your
That's
summary
all.
argument is let's get rid of those two things because they're terrible. But
And
not
let's
necessarily.
let's be
Okay,
particular here
okay.
because if that's not what your whole point is about, it's important because again, agreement matters on this one. All right, so you want to make sure that if you're
yeah.
okay. So your whole point here is there's two reasons to own either a pistol or assault rifle. It's for fun or to kill someone. You agree?
I mean, yeah, that's a gimme. That's what they're designed for.
They're not
but-
designed for hunting. That's my point. Hunting rifles, shotguns, you can hunt with them. Pistols and
they're-
assault rifles, nobody hunts with them. Or if you do, you're a piece of crap.
Well, it's illegal to hunt most things with an assault rifle. There are applications for pistol hunting, but they're very small.
I mean,
Jake
we
could
could
go
be
into that.
particular. I mean, you actually can hunt with some assault
With
rifles.
some.
You just have to reduce the magazine size. So as long as your assault rifle, you're not carrying around 50 bullets, you're fine. You carry around 5, you're
But
good.
if you're shooting deer with an assault rifle, you're a piece of crap. Like, come on, you both agree with that, right? Like,
I'm not going to say that straight out because I know people who listen to this that have hunted deer with an assault rifle, so I'm just going to keep my mouth shut.
you're a terrible shot. Get a real gun. Come on. Agree with it, Josh. You know I'm right.
No, I agree with your very simple thing. Yeah,
Very simple point.
Okay, cool. All right, we'll move on to the next one.
that's what they're for.
All right, so this is Josh's third point. So Ryan, would you agree that when it comes to confiscating firearms, the genie is out of the bottle and there's no putting it back in?
Explain what you mean.
So again, Democrats hate to admit this openly, but the goal is to get rid of guns, to confiscate all firearms. That's what the new head of the what's that division?
It's not the DEA. It's the Alcohol, Tobacco,
Yeah,
and
that guy.
Firearms.
He just
Yeah.
admitted. I mean, they had to wring it out of him for hours, but he finally admitted he just wants to do away with assault rifles. He wants them gone.
But that's
Here-
just assault rifles. It's just assault.
But it's so stupid because they only account for 1% of the deaths in the country.
Fair enough.
It's
Throw in
absurd.
pistols, and then we got a whole different ball.
Yes, we do.
Because very few people get shot with.
I know, but
Yeah.
Democrats use the scary assault rifle to scare people. They're not the problem.
pistols.
Okay, well, the pistols are not the problem. Sick people are the problem, and poor, I don't want to say poor people, but
Well,
that
Gangs, drug
Gangs,
violence,
okay, that's
all
the
of
problem.
that can be part of the problem.
that's the problem. The guns aren't killing people.
Guns
People-
are killing people.
No, people with guns are killing people. My guns sitting in my safe, have they ever shot anybody? No, they don't just shoot people. They're in the safe. Okay,
So my gun has shot lots of people, but it's a paintball
shot me yesterday 3 times. Okay, here's the problem.
Okay.
As you said, we have over 1 billion firearms just in the United States.
390 million. 390 million guns that we know of in the U.S.
Okay, well, we know of.
Yeah.
That's a lot of guns. We're
A
not
lot.
getting rid of those. And you have a bunch of obstacles. One, there's just way too many guns.
Right.
2, half the country will die before we give up our guns. So it's not happening. 3, you can go to Home Depot and make a serviceable one-shot shotgun in about 20 minutes. Okay? I've seen videos of it. 4, you can 3D print guns now. How are you ever going to get rid of guns in this country? That's the goal of the Democrats. The genie's out of the bottle. We're not getting rid of guns. So if you make more laws, and this gets back to the actual point that I haven't really been talking about the whole time, about gun laws, if you make more gun laws, you just make it more difficult for law-abiding citizens like myself to own a gun. Okay? And the point of this is people with concealed carry permits very, very, very rarely shoot anybody, and especially when committing a crime. They're more likely to shoot somebody in defense, but they very, very rarely commit crimes. People that are law-abiding citizens don't shoot people. It's really rare. Now you have some outliers.
That's true by definition. It's a tautology.
Exactly.
but
that's exactly
I'm
the
a law-abiding
point.
citizen. Once you shoot somebody, you're
You're
not
no
a
longer
law-abiding
Exactly
citizen.
the point.
Tautology.
So no, this is the point. If you make more gun laws, the people that are already going to break the gun laws, they're already breaking the gun laws. So why make more gun laws? Okay, now there are some things that we can do. Tracking who has guns, red flag laws, making sure people don't have guns that are supposed to have guns, that shouldn't have guns. Okay, let's talk about that. But if you just make it harder for law-abiding citizens to get guns, the genie's already out of the bottle. Criminals will break the law because that's what they're going to do, and they're going to get their hands on guns. And Jake and I are not going to be able to get guns. That's the point. So, but will you agree the genie's out of the bottle? There's no way you're going to get rid of guns. You can 3D print them now.
If you include the 3D printing, then you're probably right. But I know we're trying to stay away from other country comparisons.
Mm-hmm.
Australia and New Zealand have pretty effectively done this.
No, they haven't.
They have, because if you look at the gun violence and the homicide rates there by guns, they are virtually negligible compared to what we have in the U.S. In the UK, in the same year that we had 14,400 homicides, they had 50. And they are one-third the size of us. So virtually nobody dies from guns in these countries, right? I mean,
Let's talk
I know
about
that there was the
let's
New
talk about
Zealand
Australia.
massacre, right? Like that
There's
just
the New
recently
Zealand
happened.
massacre. The Australian one, when they did their gun confiscation,
Sure.
they had 3 million guns in the country. They got rid of 1 million guns. They still had 2 million guns in the country.
And I'm actually, if we can get to like my overarching point, I'm not actually trying to take away everybody's guns. I've got different solutions that I think we can actually agree on.
Let's hear them, because that is the problem with the argument in the U.S. The Democrats keep skirting that, and they don't want to admit it, but they want to get rid of guns, and it's not going to happen. So give me your.
Well, I mean,
let's do this real quick. Before we move on from this point, before we hear more points from Ryan, I just want to make sure we finish this last talking point, because these talking points are important. Like, this is what we're trying to seek agreement on.
Right.
So, Josh, do you want to add anything else to this, or is it just simply when it comes to compensating
you can't
guns?
get rid of all the guns.
How are you going to put that genie back in the bottle when you can buy a printer and create a gun?
Those are really crappy guns, though. Because
Doesn't matter.
Generally,
they're
like one-offs.
There's one-offs. You can fire them once, they're going to fall apart. Other guns are very different. I don't know that the real position of most Democrats is get rid of my neighbor's hunting rifle and bow.
I hope you're right.
I don't think that's their real argument. I think the argument is we need way better restrictions on assault rifles, which I get, they're a minority, and pistols. Those are the two really violent guns that are used to commit homicides, right? Almost nobody kills anybody with
by the
hunting
numbers,
rifles.
Pistols, yes.
Pistols, absolutely.
Assault rifles, no.
They're
By
a
the numbers,
boogeyman,
no.
that's fine. They're also used in some mass shootings, and that's why they get a bad rap.
So are hunting rifles.
So it's not sounding like you have much agreement here.
The one at Ohio State, what did that guy use at Ohio State? Hunting rifles and shotguns.
Yeah, but when was that? That was forever.
The
Like
70s, maybe?
70s,
Okay,
right?
still.
More recent ones, you hear more about assault rifles. But fine.
Yeah.
Let's ignore the assault rifles.
Okay.
I don't even care. It's
Okay.
pistols. If Josh really is just making the argument that we're probably never going to get rid of all guns, I will concede that argument. I don't think we're ever going to get rid of
That's
them.
the argument.
And I don't think that's actually what Democrats want. I don't think
I hope you're
Democrats
right.
want to get rid of all guns. I think what they want is more restrictions. And I've got a list here if we get summary points where that's...
Yeah, we're going to, just so we can have dinner, because we're in Utah together, we might as well eat together, stay friends. But so I want to get to just our summary points. So overall, we had straight agreement across the board. But that's because you guys water down your points. What I'm going to really want from you two going forward is when you make your talking points, when you make your agreement points, we need these to be more on point to what you're actually talking about. You're really softening it so you can get agreement, which is
first
good.
point soft. I said Democrats are more likely to kill people.
It's a statistical argument.
Not your point.
That's not soft.
It was just a fact. In 19 of the 20 top cities. Come on.
But I like that we're finding agreement, because that's the whole point. Like, come together and have agreement on these things. But I also don't like that you're giving me a talking point and then going off in the weeds and talking about different things.
And then we disagree.
Yeah, you disagree really bad on the nuances, which is part of it. Because we don't agree on nuances. It's part of it. But make these points going forward. What are you really arguing? Because a lot of these, I mean, some of them tied in well, but some of them
are pretty soft.
They're pretty soft.
Yeah.
And I can't give you guys good grades on this soft speech I'm seeing. I just can't get it. So since we started with Ryan, we'll let Josh go first on his summary points, and then we'll let Ryan talk for about 3 minutes after your summary.
So overall
of your overall summary of
your position.
Here's
on
my
your
overall
position
summary. If you look at history, and Ryan has disagreed with me on this before, so we might not find agreement here, but if you look at history and countries that have been taken over by either the right-wing fascists or the left-wing socialist, Marxist, communists, where does it always start? It starts with them disarming the citizens so they can't fight back. And then once the totalitarian or authoritarian leadership takes office, once they take control, once you don't have guns, you can't fight it off. And this has happened. I mean, how many places can you name where this happened? It's happened in Russia. It's happening in China right now. The Uyghurs can't fight the communists. Okay, it happened with Pol Pot. It happened in with all the fascists, with Mussolini, happened with Hitler. I mean, how many of these do you want me to name?
No.
This is a
real
real concern, and people always say, "Oh, it could never happen here." I'm sorry, it could. That's the problem. And yes, we do have a gun problem in the United States. There is an issue here. There's a lot of nuance to it. We need to talk about what's actually causing the problems. Guns are not the problem, because we can see with Switzerland, where they have a whole bunch of guns, everybody has a gun, and they have almost no gun crime. The guns are not the problem. The guns are not killing people. People are killing people. That's the problem. That's the gun problem. And I don't know why you disagree with that. Guns don't just shoot people.
I have to roll my eyes on that because it's like a standard talking point. Guns don't kill people. People
But
kill
it's
people.
true is the problem.
Sure. I mean, if there's a gun sitting on a table and nobody touches it, it's not going to kill anybody.
Exactly.
Sure. Obviously. But it's far more effective to kill people with a gun than with a knife or a hand or anything else. They're tools to kill things.
Okay.
That's why they were invented.
But
to quote you, right, Sam Colt equalized everything. You know, 'cause that's what it was for. Now I can kill you.
Yes.
It was not designed to be like a pretty little toy, right? It's
and I'm not saying it should be. It's not a toy.
It's not a toy.
It's a serious thing
People
that
use
we
it to
should
kill
take
people.
seriously.
Sure.
But if you look at other places like Switzerland, they're not killing each other with their guns.
Nor Canada. Sure, I get it. There are some countries where they have higher
guns. So
but-
guns are not the problem. Something else we're doing is the problem. That's what we should be talking about.
Well, we can talk about that.
And
How do you say if? It's obvious. The numbers are there.
That is
We
something
also
else we
have
can
more
talk
guns
about.
per capita than any other country.
But let's summarize that whole thing. So his main thing is, in the conservative view, guns are not the issue here. It's not the restriction on assault rifles. It's not the restriction on pistols that's going to solve the problem. It's dealing with society and issues like that, right? So what's your response to that? Is there agreement?
Okay. We need to have a whole nother episode, I think, because we're running out of time
We are.
on why it's just people. And then if it's people and it's inequality, then why is it the conservatives don't give a shit? Sorry, I can't say that. We'll bleep that. About inequality. So they're saying, oh, the problem is people and inequality, and that's, it's poor people who are using guns to kill people, but we don't want any tax redistribution. So
disagreement.
Totally.
Disagreement there. Okay.
Oh,
We're in
disagree
disagreement.
with Switzerland? I mean, it proves the
I
point.
agree with Switzerland.
Well,
So-
you know what I'm saying. It proves the point. Guns are not the problem.
All right, Josh. No interruptions for just like a minute. You get a minute.
That's
A
too
minute.
Why
Yes.
is there disagreement
That's
on
too
that? Real
Why is
quick.
there disagreement? Because at the end of the day, guns are a very effective tool at killing people, right? That they're very effective at this. And there are very few restrictions that we put on guns. And in fact, lots of states are trying to loosen restrictions on guns. And this gets to my summary point of we could do a lot to restrict who owns guns, how you get to use guns, when you get access to your guns, right? I'm fine with people having guns, but it should be specific subsets of people, and they should be able to get them only at certain times. I know, and you hate this, but I'm not saying take away their guns. I'm saying let's restrict them like they do in Switzerland, like they do in Canada. If you want to get your gun in Canada, you go to the police station and you check out your gun. You don't have it under your pillow, locked and ready for when somebody breaks into your house. That's not how they use their guns.
Nope. Okay, so you went into your own points as well, so
I
you
did.
used some of your time. But that's fine. I'll just give you more.
Okay.
So real quick, summarize again. And I like your list of points that you sent beforehand, especially about checking in your guns. So I want to hear all that. Summarize your points.
So should there be greater restrictions on guns? Absolutely, 100% yes. No question on this. At a minimum, I think we should have 1, universal background checks for every gun purchased, including private sales, and anyone with a criminal history or some subset of mental health concerns, a lot of nuance there, so I'm trying to be careful, should be prohibited from having a gun, and anyone who makes a threat should be permanently banned from owning a gun. Period. That is point 1.
Can I jump
Okay,
in?
well, let's stop. Yes or no?
Because I'm actually going to agree with you.
See? Agreement. This is
Agreement.
what I want.
The only thing that we're not doing right now is the background checks on private sales.
See?
And that, I agree, and conservatives listening to this are going to crucify me for taking your side on this. That is a problem.
It is a problem.
Because that's how criminals can easily get guns.
Exactly.
I agree. That is a problem.
Awesome.
Okay, agreement.
Awesome. Point 2. Every gun, you're not going to like this, every gun should be registered with the government.
Again, conservatives are going to hate me for that one.
We need to know where the guns are.
I'm actually okay with that one. The only real problem there is then the government knows exactly who to target, and people like me
And I
don't
get
trust the
that.
government.
So I
Yeah.
get that.
But-
I get, and it's a scary proposition because
What-
I don't like the government tracking me either. I try and restrict what people can track.
What we
but-
really need to do is have some in-depth, looking in-depth to see if that's kind of the stuff that's working. And I think that's what helps in Switzerland.
Yeah, exactly. The guns are all tracked.
I
You know
think
who owns the
that
guns.
helps. I think that's probably a good. I'm not going to unilaterally state I agree,
That's fine.
but I think that probably would be a good direction to go.
There we go.
Probably.
Okay. Number 3, all guns, and I would even be willing to bend on this if we want to put some like nuance here, but all guns should be kept at a local police
No,
station.
that's it.
Now I know I hate that
Idiotic.
because if you're going to go the Second Amendment argument, which I think is past due, but if you're going to go there, the whole point of having a gun is that if the government's going to be oppressive, you got to go, and if the police have all the guns, then that's a problem.
You're straight.
But if we put all assault rifles and pistols there, right, and you want to keep your hunting rifle in
No,
your
same-
fire, you're safe at
same
home.
problem.
Fine, okay, like we could put some nuance, but it's when people have access to their guns ready and handy, and they get pissed off that they start shooting people. So if they can't immediately get the gun when they're pissed off, guess what happens? They don't shoot people. That's the argument, and this is what they do in Canada. This is what they do in some of those other countries. They restrict your ready access to guns. You say, hey, I'm going hunting. You go check out your gun. The government knows that you're checking out the gun. They know you've got it. It's a safer system. That's what I'm trying to get at. I'm not taking away your guns. I'm just saying let's not give
statistically,
people
it's not a
access to it.
great argument to say that all this gun crime is happening because somebody gets pissed off and they just happen to have a gun nearby. That's not where most of the gun crime is happening. With the mass shooters, it's premeditated, and with the gang violence, it's largely premeditated. It's not. Oh, you just
Sometimes it is. A lot of the violence that happens in my state, I'm
Florida.
thinking in particular.
No, it does happen.
They're at a
In the heat of the
nightclub,
moment.
right? People
It
get
does
angry,
happen. It does
guns
happen.
come out, and they start shooting.
Mhm.
And if they didn't have the guns, right, there would be fist fights. Fine, beat the crap out
It
of
doesn't
each
sound
other,
like full
right?
agreement, but let's
Probably
move to
not.
the next one.
I can't agree.
4, you're not going to agree with either. I know there should be no licenses to carry weapons in public. I know you're not going to agree with that one, but that is the one that really gets me because I already said I'm terrified in Florida that if I gave somebody just a stink eye, like somebody cuts me off and I'm like, screw you, I can't flip people off, I'm trying to be good here, right? But screw you, that person can pull out a gun and shoot me if I am making any threatening move towards them and then say, I was standing my ground.
So what it
That's
sounds like
terrifying.
is Ryan is pushing for an open carry in every state. Just strap it on your back.
Would you be okay with an open carry?
More okay with open carry. I don't like
That's
concealed
okay.
weapons. I don't know who has a gun. Because everybody can have a gun.
But-
I think it's terrifying. I've got one more point that I think you might actually
Well,
agree.
let me address that
Okay.
one. I understand your point, but part of the pro of what you're saying there is because you don't know who has a gun, you're more likely to be respectful to people.
Yeah, but you know me. I'm respectful to everybody. I am the biggest wimp on the
But
planet.
you're you. Okay,
Sure.
everybody is more respectful. People are less likely to invade a home here in Morgan because everybody has a gun. Okay, and you don't know who has a gun and who doesn't have a gun. You don't know which wacko is going to have one under his pillow or he's carrying. So you're more likely. And I've seen statistics like in.
I'm just fixated on him calling gun owners wackos.
Some of them are
Picks
wackos.
out.
Some of them are.
I know people with guns that shouldn't have guns.
Their eldest brother and my father probably shouldn't have guns. I mean,
Probably.
That guy-
I love Troy, but yeah.
I mean,
Oh, I can tell you stories of
Yeah.
stuff he's done with guns.
yeah,
So there was a statistic that after they cracked down on guns in England, home invasions shot through the roof because people got more brazen about it because they knew nobody had a gun.
Yeah.
So they just walk in somebody's house and do whatever they wanted. So I understand your argument. There is a counter argument there.
That's fine.
But continue.
I can continue. My last kind of summary point and again, you'll note that I'm not taking people's guns away with these points. This is what I, like minimum, this is what I
With
would
most of them.
I'm restricting their access to their own guns, but I'm not taking their guns away. Last one.
Did that send
Guns.
a shiver down your spine when he said that?
restricting the access.
Restricting access to your own guns. Guns should be far more expensive, as the price of guns and ammunition should include their full economic cost, including the millions spent every year investigating gun-related homicides and healthcare for gun injuries and deaths. Some estimates have put that at over $1 billion a year. Gun owners should have to pay for the externalities related to their consumption. And if you don't get the term, it's an economic term. But it's
I
basically
understand the argument. It's an absurd argument.
It's the same reason why I think cigarettes should cost $100 a pack.
What about cars? People get
Absolutely. They should cost more. We all have to have insurance for that. You don't have to have gun insurance. You should have to have gun insurance. I'd be fine with that as a solution instead of the other.
Gun
if you want to own a gun, fine. Have gun insurance.
Monthly gun premium.
I'd be fine with anything like that. But right now, gun owners don't pay the price for the gun that causes the damage caused by guns. And that would be my last point. There are externalities here, right? They're basically shunting those costs onto the rest of society. And in the U.S., that's 80% of us. We don't own guns. But we're still paying the price when somebody gets shot, when there's a homicide, and we have to investigate that. Who's paying the price for that? It's not the 20% of gun owners. Guns are cheap. It's easier to get a gun in the U.S. than it is to get welfare.
You don't want poor people to have guns.
I don't want almost anybody to have guns, except people who have the money to go hunting, like my next door neighbor. If he is that passionate about it,
classes. He doesn't want poor people to have guns.
You were the one who said all the poor people were the ones who are committing the homicides.
No. It's
so you agree with like a mixed system of maybe gun owner insurance or something like that, or you blatantly disagree?
I've never even heard the term before.
Well, it's interesting. I think you just thought
really
about that.
Just thought.
Yeah. This might be $1 billion idea.
All right, maybe we should stop recording and discuss this. No, just kidding.
like seriously, that's not a bad idea. Gun insurance. Like I'll have to give that some thought because you raise some decent points. I mean, it's kind of a silly idea to say that guns need to be more expensive because everybody else is paying the cost of guns. There's a bunch of other areas where you can make the exact same argument.
Sure. Gas should be more expensive. All of those things, I'm fine with that.
Gas it hurts already.
Let's not increase
that.
Doesn't hurt me.
It hurts me bad.
I drive a Tesla. Sorry. I mean, this is me being the lefty liberal, but I bought it because it's an electric car, right?
I'm over there pumping diesel all day long. It's rough.
I get it.
I own a lawn care company. I have like 17 gas-powered engines sitting in my driveway.
Sure,
yeah.
Going to be tough.
Interesting. I don't know if you want to sum that up, but you made some good points. You made two really dumb points that I can't agree with. But I'm really I just want to think about the insurance thing.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thought.
It's an interesting thought. I'll have to give that some thought.
So this was a good time. I think we have a lot of agreement on a lot of things, but a lot of hardcore disagreement, which is good. I mean, and it's to be expected from two completely different ideologies. Any closing thoughts that you guys got?
I want to hear yours.
Okay, I'll give you my closing thoughts. I'm probably not the best moderator in the world for this because I probably own way more guns than any other.
He brought a gun to my house. I was wearing a hunting shirt.
Yep. I actually did bring a gun here just to show him a powder rifle because he writes books about them, But yeah, so a lot of what you said, I'm really surprised that I agreed with a lot of it. I really did. I don't agree with the idea of having the government control of guns. I don't like that. I also have a hard time when you say, and this goes again back to government control, but when you take away assault rifles and pistols from common Americans, that's the most efficient gun at killing, as you know. What do cops have? They have guns that are assault rifles. They have pistols. Absolutely. They have guns that are effective at killing. And that makes the Second Amendment constitutional issue really real for me, because when the government comes at me with assault rifles and tanks, and I'm sitting there with my bow and arrow, I feel a little bit underprepared. And that's if we really are pushing the government coming in tyranny,
That's the whole point of it.
And that does get it scary, because our government has, we live in Utah right next to Air Force Base, and I got F-16s flying over my house all day long. And if I'm shooting my bow at those suckers, it's a bad day.
You can shoot your whatever assault rifle you want at them.
You don't have a prayer.
They've got so many more bigger, right?
They
the drones. They could drop a drone on you anytime.
And for
the idea of you defending yourself
against the government,
M16 or whatever. No,
but it comes down to the numbers as well. Because if something like that was to happen, it is the government against the common Americans, and there's enough common Americans with guns, and there's enough Americans. I think
it also comes down to, if we don't have guns and the government orders the soldiers to round us up, they could do that. If we have guns and they show up to round us up and we say, no, we're going to fight you, they're going to have to start killing their neighbors. Okay? They'll win. They'll win if the whole military's on board.
Right.
But the whole military needs to be on board.
The whole military is not going to be on board because they're not going to kill their neighbors.
Right.
If we don't have guns, they don't have to kill their neighbors, and then it's much easier for them to be on board. This is important.
I get that. The last time Josh and I had this debate at Katie's house,
I
do you remember? I said, Josh, one elite special forces team against Rose Hill. Who's going to win?
Well, how big's the team?
Usually a squad is 6.
We're going to win.
You're dead.
No, we'll
guarantee.
beat a squad of 6. A squad of 20? Probably not. But we have several military people in the neighborhood.
Squad of 6, they're going to kill you.
It would depend on
that good.
No, if they have
and their
fire
equipment
support,
is that good.
Hey,
they come at night with
and that was
night
my
vision.
thing. If they come at night,
y'all
if they
are
come
done.
and you're not ready, you're done.
I don't care if
we're ready.
If there are 1,500 guns in this neighborhood, it's a group of 6. Y'all are dead.
No,
that's how good they are.
Well, let's hope
if
it
we're
doesn't
not
come to
ready
that.
and they come at night,
You're all dead.
we're dead. If we're ready, if we know we're coming, if it's equal fight, we know they're coming. I like our chances.
Yeah, I would kind of agree with that. But there's one other thing I want to talk about with what you had. When it comes down to defending yourself, when you, and I've seen a lot of this on the internet, so I argue from positions I can't really say I personally experienced. But when people call the police, police show up with weapons to defend when there's violent incidents, right? The response time of me going to my gun, if I was ever to get in a situation like that, and I always picture kidnapping with my daughter, because I have 2 daughters, and for me,
they're cute.
they're my world, and if anyone was to ever try to steal them, I don't feel bad about saying I'm going to shoot them until I run out of bullets.
Fair.
And in those situations, when I think about if someone was to disarm me, I'm not the biggest guy. I don't know how to fight. I mean,
Look at this.
but I don't know how to fight. So, and I'm not that intimidating. And if someone was to try to steal my daughters and I couldn't do anything about it, that's for me, that's what scares me. And if I was to have to call the cops, they say the average police response time is in 20-minute range.
Yeah.
And that's not enough for me to protect my daughters. And that's, for me, that's where I get scared. And that's where I kind of fall into the conservative argument of, I want to be able to defend myself. And I will never let my daughters touch a gun until they know how to use it. And so I believe training is important. And I feel like I'm decently trained with guns. And I feel like if I was required to protect my family in a situation like kidnapping, I could. And so for me, don't take away my pistol because I want to protect my daughter from getting kidnapped. But I do understand the restrictions. I understand what you said about background checks for
Even
private cells. And again, like I'll probably get a lot of hate from this too.
I will.
But
I know I will.
I think that it's important.
From the libertarian camp? Oh, man.
And background checks are effective. I mean, we can very quickly decide
The
who
numbers
can
prove
and who can't have
the
a gun.
numbers prove
They do.
background checks are effective and screening is effective.
And even the cost for background checks is not high.
No,
I mean,
pretty
it's not expensive. And so I would be down for increased background checks, even on private cells. So overall, I agree with a lot of what you said. And coming into this, I was not expecting to. So
That's the whole point of this podcast!
No, there was agreement.
We agree on almost everything.
And so the final thing that I wanted to say
Yeah.
was coming into this, if you had more agreement with his points, my requirement of you was in advertising this next podcast episode, I want you holding my guns that I brought today, taking a picture, and I want you holding them and saying, yeah, okay, and I just want this on the internet. I want Ryan holding a black powder rifle and whatever other guns we can put on it. But I felt like there was almost more agreement from Josh today. So my requirement from Josh, we're going to think about it a little bit more because I don't like it as much now. But it's the same thing. We're gonna have Josh advertising our next episode. We're just gonna think of something a little bit.
All right.
Of a
Want
more
to do
surprise.
something liberal?
Yeah, we're gonna have you giving away your guns or something. we'll think of something. But no, this was a great episode. I think we had a lot of agreement, and I'm happy to be here with you guys live.
It was awesome.
Now we're gonna have some dinner with their families. It's good times. So thanks for everyone for listening. Listen to all the other episodes. These guys are great. All right, see y'all.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Finding Common Battlegrounds. The music is by Ben Sound. The views expressed in this podcast are those of the participants and not those of their employers. For more information or more episodes, you can find us at findingcommonbattlegrounds.com.